Welcome, y'all. We just got a whole new update for the fighter class in the Dungeons & Dragons Playtest 7 Unearthed Arcana material. Let's get right into it. I'm going to go full screen so y'all can see the action here. If you're looking at the screen, you're going to see lots of text, but I want you to pay the most attention to this silver grayish box right here on each page. That's where you're going to see a lot of the big updates. I will read the text to you, so don't mind my webcam being in the way. You're not going to miss anything. I'm going to read it all out to you. But we're talking about the fighter, and the fighters rule many battlefields. Questing knights, royal champions, elite soldiers, hardened mercenaries. That is the type of fantasy that we're going for here. And there are some major changes happening to the fighter. So first, the new stuff. There's a new Brawler Subclass. The Brawler Subclass is all about improvised weapons. We'll get into that in just a moment. There's also a new ability that you get at level 5 called the Master of Armaments, where the fighter can swap out the mastery properties of their weapon so that they can be this supremely adaptable martial, right? There are also many updates. There are many updates, but I'm going to give you my 3 big ones right now. First is martial versatility. This is taken from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, a supplemental book dropped by Dungeons & Dragons and Wizards of the Coast, the team over there, where you can swap out your feats, your fighting style feats upon level up. So that's huge. So you're not stuck with the same thing all the way through your campaign. The next thing is that changes the second wind, and this is probably the biggest change to the fighter class that we're going to see as I scroll through this document. You get a minimum of 2 uses per day. This is at level 2, by the way. You can expend a use later on to roll a d10 on failed ability checks. So if you're playing through a campaign where there's no combat, if you fail an ability check in a conversation or a stealth roll, you can use your second wind charge and you can roll a d10 to add it to that roll. Also, short rests now return a charge of your second wind. Finally, we have the changes to Action Surge. Action Surge now allows any additional action to be taken except magic attacks. Sorry, Eldritch Knight fighters, you're not going to be able to use it that way. But actually, you will. You'll be able to use cantrips, and we'll get into that in a separate video. Anyone else, you can't use a magic action. So taking a look at the fighter class here. Again, design notes, the fighter updates, you got the fighting style, you can replace it, you got the second wind, you got weapon mastery that maxes out at 6 instead of 5. I talked about action surge. Tactical mind is a huge thing because what they're going for here with the fighter, like many other martials, is they're trying to give you the ability to excel out of combat, but also to give you more options and more versatility and utility in combat. So the fighter is this awesome tactician. Here's a look at the level progression. I'll put that up on screen for you if you want to take a good look at that. You don't get 3 extra attacks until level 20. Indomitable Spirit is here instead of the other one, which was like Unconquerable or something. I'm sure it'll come up. You see Action Surge is here at level 2. Your fighter subclass is obtained at level 3. That seems to be streamlined across many other classes, including casters like the Cleric, but we'll keep it rolling. So, more changes here. Fighter subclass and ability score improvement have returned to their 2014 levels. We've seen some of this stuff, especially with feats being involved, shift around, but that's going to return to the 2014 player handbook levels. The tactical shift, as I mentioned before, very briefly, comes at level 5. It lets you move without provoking opportunity attacks. This is only when you activate your second wind. So there's a lot of stuff and a lot of changes coming to second wind and action surge, which are things that very much make the fighter the fighter. We already talked about Master of Armaments. Indomitable once again confers more uses at higher levels. We have Studied Attacks, which is a new level 13 feature. This is whenever you hit someone, you're going to get a second opportunity to swing again. Think Reckless Attack. But it's a little different. You have advantage on your next attack rather than just re-rolling the attack. Unconquerable, that's what it was. Unconquerable was cut in favor of Indomitable. And then we have 3 extra attacks, which is at level 20. So those are the kind of overall class changes for the fighter. But what we're going to talk about now is the Brawler, the new class that they just revealed in this live stream. And there's updates to the Battle Master, and here's updates to the Champion. Let me know in the comments if you want me to review that. But let's talk about the Brawler. Brawlers focus their training and study not on swordplay and battle tactics, but on the skills needed to turn a punch or kick into a brutal strike, and any innocuous object into a deadly weapon. Some brawlers thrive in tavern scuffles and street rumbles, while others excel in espionage, wielding ordinary objects with the deadliness of an assassin's knife. So just a note here, this is a big thing coming to the 2024 Dungeons Masters Guide, okay? There will finally be magic items in the game to enhance your unarmed strikes and your improvised weapons. Let me say that again. There will be magic items that enhance your unarmed strikes. Yes, we're going to need that for this fighter, especially because it is a brawler and they're going to be using lots of unarmed strikes and improvised weapons. So level 3 is where you get Unarmed Expert. You guys probably saw some previous Unearthed Arcana, a lot of similar homebrews for this. But you can roll a 1d6 plus your strength mod of the normal damage of your unarmed strike. If you aren't holding any weapons or a shield when you make the attack roll, the d6 becomes a d8. So this is a way of encouraging fighters to drop the shield and just be an all-out brawler. This is an interesting play on the fighter who's this brilliant tactical mind, but in this instance, you're just a fighter and you're just trying to get down and dirty with your hands. We're grappling and stuff too, which we'll get into here in a second. Level 3, Improvised Expert. You are proficient with improvised weapons. And this is something that's going to change the way that your fighter interacts with weapon properties in the one-handed list and from the two-handed list. So whenever you finish a long rest, choose one weapon property from the one-handed list and one from the two-handed list. They show you one-handed and two-handed there for light, thrown, reach, and thrown properties. Until the end of your next long rest, the one-handed choice applies to the one-handed improvised weapons you wield, and the two-handed choice applies to the two-handed ones. In addition, whenever you attack with an improvised weapon, you can give it one of the following mastery properties for that attack, depending on whether it can be wielded in one hand or two. So you get extra abilities that you can use. Some of this stuff you might have seen in Baldur's Gate 3, especially if you want to topple some NPCs, if you want to use cleave with your longsword, things like that. You can use that with the improvised weapons here. Level 7, we have Grappling Expert. This is a big part of the class. This is a huge spike in its capabilities, and you'll see why. You can make one unarmed strike. Let me move my webcam so y'all can read this. You can make one unarmed strike as a bonus action. When you use an unarmed strike in this way, you must choose the grapple or shove option. So your unarmed strike is as your bonus action here. You bring them in. This is someone that's up close. So, of course, your fighter is a frontline fighter. In addition, at the start of each of your turns, you can deal 1d6 bludgeoning damage to one creature grappled by you. So they want you up and in their face and just using whatever is in your environment. You're a dirty fighter, which brings us to level 10, Dirty Fighting. I'm going to move my webcam again so y'all can see some of this stuff easier. You have advantage on attack rolls made with improvised weapons and unarmed strikes against a creature grappled by you. So whatever poor soul you wrap up in your arms, they're going to have to deal with all of these different advantages that you bring yourself as a fighter. And grappling someone as a martial can be a bit disadvantageous too, because it affects your the way that you move around the battlefield and such. Level 15, you get Improvised Specialist. You are a master at making the ordinary deadly. Whenever you hit a creature with an improvised weapon, you can add your proficiency bonus to the damage roll, and the damage die of your two-handed improvised weapons becomes 1d12. Next paragraph. In addition, whenever you attack with an improvised weapon, you can use two mastery properties from Improvised Expert instead of one. So we're getting into the end game stuff right here, right? So level 18, which it looks to be the capstone for this subclass, I should say, your unarmed strikes improve to a d8. If you aren't holding any weapons or a shield when you make the attack roll, the d8 becomes a d10. So this is a callback to what we got way earlier at level 3 when you took the subclass. If you weren't wearing a shield, your unarmed strikes went from a d6 to a d8. But later on, they let you have that as your baseline if you want a d8 with a shield, but you're missing out on the d10 is what that entails. So that was a quick run through of what was just dropped for the fighter subclass and fighter class, and specifically for the brawler subclass. Let me know in the comments if y'all want to see more of the other classes, and I'll talk